guys, it's Eddie and today I am back in the middle of the week, strangely enough, which is kind of weird for me. But yeah, here I am. I'm back with another video today. It's not going to be a movie review, as you've probably, guessed by the title. But a couple of weeks ago, I did a video entitled My Top 10 Worst Movies. And I think you can kind of guess naturally what today is going to be. I thought I'd do the sort of opposite of that and do my top 10 best or my top 10 favourite movies of all time. Here I am for you looking au naturel, wild hair, apart from my lipstick, which is all like crazy. I love it. So yeah, this movie is just going to be all about my favourite movies. It's been so hard for me to narrow all of these down into one top 10 list. So I will probably have to do another one at some point because I was struggling. Honestly, it took me so long to make this list. I was like panicking, struggling. I was like, what do I do? But I have finally come up with a list. I'm pretty proud of it. But like I said, my favourite movies change all of the time. What's in the list one week will not be in there another week. It'll be sort of replaced and but without further ado, this is my current top 10 best movies of all time. So without further ado, let's get started. The first movie on my list, well, movies, is The Godfather and The Godfather Part 2. Now, I couldn't really split these guys up. Also, I wanted room for more movies because I needed more room for this list. So I decided to put these two together. And I just have to say, I know I've already done a review on these movies, but I kind of always tell people that The Godfather and The Godfather Part 2 are like my favourite movies of all time. So I just love everything about them. I think the direction by Francis Ford Coppola is so dark and intense and clever. The cast is absolutely stellar. Al Pacino is one of my favourite actors, and we've got people like James Caan and Marlon Brando and Robert Duvall, and it's just an amazing, fantastic cast. The story by Mario Puzo is absolutely stunning, and I just really can't fault these movies. I could watch them every day if I could, and I'm sure it would be fantastic, but unfortunately I can't. But yeah, The Godfather and The Godfather Part 2 are the first on this list. I must mention that this is supposed to be in no particular order, but I did happen to put these two first. They were the first that I thought of, so. The next movie on my list is a movie entitled Midnight Cowboy, starring Dustin Hoffman and Jon Voight. Now, I watched this movie because I really got into Dustin Hoffman movies. He's one of my favourite actors, and I have to say, I think this is his best work. The story of this movie follows the character of Joe Buck, played by Jon Voight, who goes to New York to sort of make it big as a male prostitute, trying to get some customers from the ladies, but it doesn't go well, and he soon finds that he's pretty destitute, down and out, and he meets this sort of street weasel called Ratso Rizzo, played by Dustin Hoffman, and it gets off to a rocky start, but the two eventually become really, really close friends. This film is funny, this film is incredibly sad, but the performances by both Jon Voight and Dustin Hoffman are astonishing, and for a film that was made in 1969, it touches on some really important issues, and it's just a fantastic, well-made, beautiful film by Don Schlesinger. So yeah, Midnight Cowboy, check it out if you haven't already. The next movie on my list is The Breakfast Club. I've done a review of this movie before, and I think when I was a teenager, well, I am a teenager, but like when I was like 12, 13, early teens, I watched this movie. I didn't know what to expect, and I was just completely blown away. It really sort of got to me. It really sort of defied all of my expectations, and I think it's just the sort of peak of that genre of 80s teen movies that a lot of people, particularly myself, know and love. I think it's just the cream of the crop. The cast are absolutely stunning, and even if you aren't sort of a sort of a sporto or a jock or a princess, or you weren't one of those things in high school, it still has really sort of deep themes that every teenager can sort of relate to, and I think it's just an amazing film. that has, you know, everything. It's funny, it's sad, it has an impromptu dance sequence. I mean, what more do you need from a film? It's fantastic. The next film on my list is the latest film that I reviewed. It's A Clockwork Orange. A Clockwork Orange is, of course, directed by Stanley Kubrick, and in my latest review I totally gushed about how amazing it was, and that's true. That's why it's on this list. I think it's just a weird, sort of dystopian, sort of crime classic. I think it's amazing. I think the performance by Malcolm McDowell as Alex DeLarge is creepy and fantastic, and, you know, his character undergoes such an arc, and it's just amazing, an amazing film, both to look at and both to watch. It's totally gripping. You become so invested in this sort of delinquent boy, and you know, Kubrick paired with the fantastic story by Anthony Burgess is a winning combination, I think. And once I watched this movie, I was totally blown away. So that's why it has a place on this list. The next movie on my list is a movie that I watched far more recently than I should have. It's Django Unchained, directed by Quentin Tarantino. I watched this film while I was at uni, and oh my god, I was totally blown away. Quentin Tarantino is one of my favourite directors, and I remember when this came out in 2012, I was dying to see it, but I was too young. I couldn't actually go to the cinema to see it, which was really sad. And then after that, I totally kind of forgot about it. I didn't see it on DVD or anything, but it happened to be on Netflix. I gave it a try, and I was just instantly hooked. I think Jamie Foxx's performance was incredible. He didn't even have to say any words. It was amazing. I think that Quentin Tarantino's story was fantastic. The themes, the cast was absolutely superb, particularly Christoph Waltz as Dr. King Schultz. Dr. King Schultz is one of the main reasons why I love this movie so much, because his character is probably one of the best characters that Quentin Tarantino has ever created. I think he's really sweet and nice, but with this sort of low-key badass element, which is fantastic. And of course, Leonardo DiCaprio as the villain, Calvin J. Candy, absolutely fantastic. It's weird seeing Leo in a villain role, but I really liked it. And Quentin Tarantino always manages to get the best out of his actors. And this film was just full of violence, it was just full of blood and shootouts, and it was just absolutely gripping. I loved it. The next movie on this list is Reservoir Dogs, another Quentin Tarantino movie. Quentin Tarantino, love you, man, you're amazing. Reservoir Dogs was actually the first Quentin Tarantino movie I saw, and I didn't know what to expect from it. My mum just stuck it on, and I was like totally gripped. I love the fact that apart from a couple of sort of scenes, flashback scenes and introductory scenes, it takes place mainly in this sort of abandoned warehouse where all this sort of all the gangsters, I don't know, has to reconvene after a heist that's gone wrong. I think it's just a masterclass in acting, you know, with the likes of Harvey Keitel and Steve Buscemi and Michael Madsen and Tim Roth, who I especially love in the role of Freddie Neuendijk. They are just incredible. The dialogue is fantastic. The reliance on the skills of acting is brilliant. You're totally hooked, and you don't know who the rat is until about 3/4 of the way through, and it's just totally enthralling. I've always loved this movie ever since I first saw it, and I just had to put it on this list. My next movie on this list is another Stanley Kubrick film. It is Dr. Strangelove. This is another film that I watched recently and was totally blown away by. And I think that comes mainly from the performances from George C. Scott and Peter Sellers. I hadn't seen a Peter Sellers film before this, and I'm so glad that I decided to watch this because he is just an incredible actor, and I don't think he got enough credit for his work. I was totally blown away by his sort of 3 different roles in this film. It's kind of difficult to explain the 3 roles for anyone who hasn't seen it. I would just advise you to watch it because it's just, from Sellers, it's just an absolute masterclass in acting, and the sort of dark comedy element that tapped into sort of fears at the time is sort of funny now, and I'm sure it would have had a little bit of humorous unease for people watching it back then. But I think it's just an incredible film. It had me laughing, and I really, really liked it. I've watched it a couple of times since, actually, and it never ever gets old. And I would watch it again, of course. So yeah, Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. I'm glad that's in brackets. The next film on my list is another film that I watched recently, which is There Will Be Blood. And I'm a huge Daniel Day-Lewis fan. I think he's the best actor in the world, probably. It was just fantastic. Paul Thomas Anderson's direction was just incredible. And again, even with this sort of like conflicting, sort of very complex character at the forefront of this movie, Daniel Plainview, you were totally gripped by his situation. And there were certain elements to this movie with quite a slow start that made you just totally invested, totally gripped, and it took you on such a story. It may not have been the ending that you had hoped for, but it was very sort of gripping and realistic, and I absolutely loved it. And I watched this movie and I was thinking about writing this list, and it just had to be in there because I was just totally stunned by how fantastic this movie was. I think it's just like possibly perfect, because like you can't fault this movie. It's incredible. And yeah, Daniel Day-Lewis, again, a fantastic performance, well worthy of that Oscar. So There Will Be Blood. The next movie on this list is another Stanley Kubrick film. Stanley, what are you doing to me? But this is one of the only horror films on this list. I think it's the only horror film, but that's kind of weird for me. But anyway, it's The Shining. And I think, other than it being a fantastic Stephen King story adaptation, it's also got amazing direction from Stanley Kubrick that just amplifies the creepiness and the eeriness of this situation of this family staying the winter at the very weird, very haunted Overlook Hotel. And another thing that I love about this film is Jack Nicholson's fantastic acting. You know, his sort of descent into madness is so well portrayed. And it's one of those films that, despite it being a horror and despite it being creepy, I can just watch over and over again. It's my go-to Halloween film. It's my go-to summer, winter, autumn, spring film. I'll watch it all year round. But yeah, I mean, there are some horror films that I cannot watch repeatedly. Films like The Exorcist, I'm just not going to bother with because it's too creepy. But The Shining is amazing. I love it. I've loved it since I first watched it, and it had to be on this list. Another Kubrick film. I love Kubrick so much. Anyway, next up, the final film on this list is a film by Martin Scorsese, whom I absolutely love and adore as a director, and the film is Goodfellas. Now, I just love gangster movies. I'm a sucker for a gangster movie, as you could tell with The Godfather. But, I mean, some people put Goodfellas on a par with The Godfather. I can't really do that. But nevertheless, it is one of my favourite movies. It's full of amazing quotes that you can just churn out over and over again. And I think the performances by Ray Liotta and Robert De Niro, and especially Joe Pesci, are absolutely fantastic. They're fiery, they're quick, they're just absolutely palpable as these sort of gangster, sort of big shot tyrants that sort of work their way up in the world. And I just think it's an absolutely fantastic film. The direction, as it always is with Scorsese, is absolutely stunning. One of my favourites is that sort of running kitchen shot where the camera follows the back of Henry and Karen while they're walking through the back of the kitchen, because they obviously get special access to the club/restaurant. And it's amazing. I love everything about this film. It's got a fantastic soundtrack that just makes everything in the film seem better. And I love Martin Scorsese. I love this film. And yeah, that's the final film on my list. Now, this is all just my opinion, guys. Your top 10 list might totally differ from mine, but that's totally fine. It's just opinion, that's all it is. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video anyway, and I really enjoyed making it, and I will of course return on Monday with another review for you all. But for now, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Remember, if you want to suggest any movies for me to review, leave a comment below or message me on my Tumblr, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. Bye!